I call Denise Roach.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to take a call on the first reading of the Accident Compensation, Financial Responsibility and Transparency Amendment Bill. Sir, we support this bill because while it doesn't come anywhere near close to the Green Party vision for a fairer, more transparent and people-focused ACC, it does take a few tiny steps in that direction. And I'll start off, sir, by looking at the things that we like, the positive aspects. We like that it improves the framework for determining ACC's levied accounts. The changes provide improvements on the current models, ensuring that the levy setting process is more transparent and reducing the shock caused by sharp fluctuations in levies. And we support the provision to adjust the dates to avoid the over-collection of the residual claim levy by removing the fixed date that's in the current legislation, sir. We also support the policy objective of the bill to improve the governance process by setting levies through the requirement on the government to set a funding policy in line with the statutory principles, and as well as supporting improving the transparency of the levy setting process. We also support the objective of the bill to ensure that the public is better informed. Better reporting makes for a better informed public, and policymakers have more information as well. So while we do acknowledge that the bill has some positive changes, we regard the funding model of this scheme as fundamentally unfair and flawed. And furthermore, we think that this bill is a lost opportunity. We could have been a lot more ambitious. So what would the Greens do? What would our solutions be? As my colleague Kevin Haigh has outlined numerous times, our vision for ACC is where it continues to be a world-class service and it honours the social contract it was founded on. We want an end to the shift towards a profit-driven insurance model, a shift that this government brought in through the abolition of the pay-as-you-go system and when it shifted to this one. In 1974, sir, New Zealand broke new ground with the introduction of the No-Fault Accident Compensation Act. It created a social contract embodied in the 5 Woodhouse principles that the scheme was founded on. And I remind the House, those 5 principles were community responsibility, comprehensive entitlements, complete rehabilitation, real compensation, and administrative efficiency. And in the 41 years since that original legislation was passed, we've seen successive governments tinker with our law. Since its inception in 1974, there have been 5 substantive legislative changes to the Accident Compensation Act. And as a result, many of the original principles have been undermined and people's rights have been eroded. Mr Speaker, we've seen under this government a transition away to a profit-driven insurance model, away from an ACC that served the public good. There have been countless incidences where the access to ACC has been restricted, and these have been well exposed in the papers over the last few years. And in 2012, what could serve as a warning to the Minister of Health about the social bonds policy that he's introducing, my colleague Kevin Haigh exposed how ACC managers, how their pay was linked to the number of long-term claimants they were able to remove from the corporation's books. And we hear more and more stories, sir, from people who should receive compassionate and equitable service from ACC, but are wrongly denied compensation. And that includes, sir, last year, when claimants who were denied access to the scheme because they refused to sign what was eventually found illegal by the courts, because they refused to sign privacy waiver forms. When the focus is on the bottom line, sir, the social good aspect of ACC is completely ignored and lost forever. And Mr. Speaker, we believe that we could have an ACC scheme that is fair and comprehensive and efficient and transparent and more people focused. If given the chance, we would guarantee that all people who have genuine work-related gradual process injuries, disease or infection, including occupational overuse injuries and chemical poisoning, people like the workers from Whakatane, the sawmill workers who were poisoned over 3 decades ago, who are still having to fight for compensation. People like that, we would ensure that they can obtain ACC cover. We'd ensure access to specialist assessors to ensure that people can receive full entitlements. We'd revoke co-payment requirements. We'd establish an independent ACC ombudsman to improve accountability against abuses. We would also, sir, support specific risk-based levies to encourage injury prevention where appropriate. Now that would have a huge impact on health and safety in agriculture, construction and forestry, sir. We'd fund ACC through an equitable mix of levies on employers, employees, motor vehicle usage and general taxation. And we'd ensure the maintenance of a rigorous ethical ACC investment policy which prevents ACC from investing in enterprises that provide products or services that significantly increase rates of injury or illness or otherwise significant adverse social or environmental aspects. And I think, sir, ethical investment is something that we should be looking a lot more closely at. And sir, we would also support and strengthen ACC's focus on injury prevention, including integration with broader preventative health programs and interventions in communities and workplaces, in schools and in homes. And we would fix ACC by reverting back to a pay-as-you-go model. It was a working model. It was a working model which produced a different culture in ACC, one focused on rehabilitation and care. ACC is not an insurance scheme. And there's many reasons for going back to a pay-as-you-go system. Sound economic reasons, sir, outlined specifically by an expert from Auckland School of Business, Auckland University School of Business, Michael Littlewood, and he suggested and has assured us that the pay-as-you-go model has less volatility on investment returns and has less uncertainty than the current actuarial calculations. He also says that the flawed nature of applying actuarial assumptions is intended for a private market rather than a government one. And pay-as-you-go system is cheaper to administer, and I guess this government is all for wanting to reduce the expense of bureaucracy. And there is also the increased transparency of pay-as-you-go system due to the ease of understanding it. Mr. Littlewood, and I'll quote him, he concludes his research by saying, a pay-as-you-go approach to levy setting should be simpler, more transparent, less risky financially, and it would also lower investment risk in New Zealand. Mr. Speaker, we support this bill because it's a small improvement to the inadequate status quo, but New Zealanders deserve an ACC that tries to maximise the well-being of our people and its clients, not one that relentlessly pursues the financial bottom line.